Welcome to the Restoration Psychology Podcast. In this episode, Dr. Pay and Tyler interview Chase Reed about her experiences working with clients who struggle with addiction, the relational impacts of addiction, and how to navigate it with truth and love. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
To the weary, the hurting, and the hopeful, welcome to the Restoration Psychology Podcast, where you're invited to rest, heal, and restore. Today, Dr. Pay and I are interviewing Chase Reed, one of the clinicians here at Restoration Psychology. Chase has been on maternity leave for the last couple months, so she came back just for this interview today. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to be here.
We're so glad to have you.
It feels good to be back.
Great. Yeah. Well, just to start us off, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your specialties here at Restoration, and then why you love what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been on the team at Restoration here for a little over a year and a half now. It's been wonderful. I graduated from my grad school program. What was that? I guess 2.5 years ago now. I graduated here locally. Fun fact, Stacy, Leah, and I were classmates together in grad school. And another fun fact is Dr. Temple was my professor in grad school. So it's all just coming full circle. But yeah, I have been living in Denver here for 5 years now. Okay. My husband and I live here, and like Tyler mentioned, I've been on maternity leave, so I just had my first baby a few months ago. We have a son, and so we love Denver, originally from Texas, but Denver is definitely home now. Some of my specialties, some of the clients that I like to work with, obviously addictions. That's what we'll spend the majority of our time talking about today, so I'll save that for later.
Great.
Otherwise, I think my bio on the website talks about I love working with people who are struggling with anxiety, maybe going through significant life transitions, struggling with relationship issues, maybe some family dynamics that have been hard over the years. What that looks like from a demographic perspective, I definitely prefer working with individuals as opposed to couples or families.
Sure.
And then I tend to work a lot right now with adolescents, kind of on the older end of adolescence, and then young adults. That's been really fun.
Fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Of course, yeah.
So just to jump in then, right, I know you mentioned talking about addictions. Addictions is a part of one of your niches and specialties here. Yeah. What does that mean? What does it look like?
Sure.
What does it comprise of and consist of? Because I feel like addictions can be a very broad term for a lot of different people. And I know, at least, right, for me, there's process addictions, substance addictions. Those can be different, similar patterns.
Definitely.
Yeah. If you just want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So tangibly, what that's looked like for me is that actually my internship during grad school and then my first job out of grad school, I was working in an agency setting where I was primarily working with clients struggling with substance abuse. And so actually those clients were involved in the court system. And so I don't know how much listeners or you guys know, but when you're in the court system or on probation, sobriety is crucial to actually successfully completing probation. And so if substance abuse is a struggle, then you're not going to be able to get through the court system or successfully complete probation. Go ahead.
Are they on probation because of substance abuse or?
So potentially they could have gotten a charge like a DUI, or maybe a domestic violence charge that was alcohol induced.
I see.
Or they could have had a charge that was totally unrelated to substance abuse. So
gotcha.
Regardless, if they need support around substance abuse because you have to be sober to successfully get through probation, then that would be first thing that we need to treat is that before you're able to deal with some of the other things that might have led to the charge.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So tangibly for me, substance abuse is kind of the specific addiction that I've spent the most time working with or treating. But to your point, addiction is much larger than that. You can have a gambling addiction. You might have a sex addiction. I would say there are certainly unique factors to each of those types of addiction. And the neurobiology of addiction does look very similar. So the way that whatever your substance of choice, again, whether that's gambling or an actual substance or sex, for example, however that like whatever that is, still the way that impacts like the dopamine
Sure.
receptors. We could like get into the nitty gritty of all of that. But I would say the neurobiology and like really how you treat those things, there are a lot of similarities, even though the like substance of choice might be different.
Because the reason why somebody would go back to the either substance or process is
Right.
the same pull or dopamine hit or whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I recently read this article, and it said that the number one addiction right now in the U.S. is sports gambling.
I have been hearing a lot about,
I was so shocked because I've always thought it was like addiction or alcohol.
Right. And then there's also, I was literally talking to my sister about this a couple weeks ago, but now there's apps where you can like bet on what the weather is going to be like. So gambling, like sports gambling is now expanding far beyond
Just any kind of betting.
It's just like, can I bet on anything? So yeah, that is very prevalent. And then it's interesting because sports gambling isn't legal in all the states. It's legal here in Colorado,
Yep.
but like not legal in Texas, for example. Obviously that doesn't stop people from doing it, but gambling is everywhere.
I was so surprised by that.
It's wild. Right. And then obviously like technology, I feel like
Sure.
this day and age, most of us are addicted to technology in some form or fashion, but addiction certainly is super broad sweeping.
I also have a follow-up question. So you said that you were working with people in the court system and that the goal was sobriety.
Yeah.
So I also read another article because sometimes I do that.
Yeah.
And it actually said that addictions treatment is moving towards client-centered approaches and it's no longer about sobriety in a lot of addictions facility, but it's about management and reducing the amount of substance. And again, I was so shocked by that.
Yeah.
So is that a hot take or not? I don't know. I'd just love to hear your thoughts.
I think you're
that.
right that that's a hot take, and it's a hot take that I probably agree with.
Okay. Which part do you agree with?
So what we would call it is it's the harm reduction model.
Okay.
And so, that the harm reduction model is actually more effective than just like, telling your client to just like cold turkey get rid of whatever substance they've been using. And so the reason why I think that harm reduction is more effective is because if you're talking to a client, which I often was, who's been addicted to meth for 10 years, for example, like it's very unlikely that they are going to overnight just like completely stop using. Yes, there's certainly people who do that. And so it's not to say like that's not allowed.
Sure.
But even like I'll use alcohol, for example. If I'm working with a client who has regularly been drinking 20 beers a day for even the past year, what we might say is like, hey, let's start by trying to drink 12 beers a day and see how that goes. There's also a health factor in that too, right? Like when you look at withdrawal and like actually tapering off is going to be better for their overall health. But that also is maybe easier for them to mentally get behind of like, okay, it's not that I have been so dependent on this substance and now what I'm being asked to do is just like never touch it again starting right now. But instead to say like, okay, maybe I can just start to like essentially wean off of it.
Sure.
Would the end goal of weaning off of it be sobriety?
Definitely.
Or not necessarily?
Well, I guess that's a good point. Maybe that was my bias. Definitely. I would say definitely.
You would hope for that.
Sure. And the court system has, like, that's what
Wants
it has
that,
to be. And I would say, like, if this addiction is causing, like, serious problems, many people would say, like, an addict can't continue to use it and be healthy because they've demonstrated that they can't use it to a healthy degree. In moderation, exactly. And maybe there's some people who like, I would also say there's like different levels of an addiction where it's like, okay, I just frequently using this and maybe every once in a while it is causing problems in my life to now like, oh, I'm finding that I can't go without this substance. I'm maybe becoming dependent on it. And then there's all out like, oh, my body literally like, if I'm not using this substance, then I'm showing physical signs of withdrawal or dependence. So anyways, it probably depends on where that person falls in the spectrum of can they use it at all, even in moderation.
Which then goes back to like a whole client-centered like solution, goal. And a part of it is like, how do you get buy-in from someone who's resistant to the idea of being addicted to something? And if that's the path forward, then maybe it's just a good place to start.
Right. Yeah, buy-in is a huge piece. And another thing I'll touch on is the stages of change model. So for anyone like familiar with psychology, this is something frequently talked about in my my previous job. It was like really the framework around a lot of our work is the stages of change model. And so there's 5 stages in the stages of change model. First, there's like pre-contemplation. So that's the person that is totally resistant, would say like, I don't even have a problem. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. And then you move into contemplation. So that's just simply beginning to think, oh, maybe this is causing problems in my life. I'm by no means ready to do anything to change that. But it's simply that's contemplating. Maybe this is problematic and maybe a change would be helpful.
Sure.
Then there's like the determination or the preparation stage of change. So that's like, I'm just beginning to kind of gather the tools and resources for beginning to make that change. So maybe I sign up for treatment somewhere, or I sign up to go see a therapist. Sure. The action stage of change is when we're actually starting to put those things into place. So actually starting to like decrease the amount that you're using the substance. And then there's the maintenance stage of change, which is like really when you've been in the action stage of change for a sustained amount of time. And so, I'm just simply in maintenance. And an important piece to add in there is like a relapse or a lapse, some might call it, could happen at any point in that stage of change model. And you can immediately jump back into any stage of change. So just because you've had a lapse or a relapse doesn't automatically mean like, oh, now you're back to pre-contemplation. It's like, no, you could have a lapse and then the next day go right back into action.
So it's not a linear model.
Right.
You can weave in and out.
Exactly. Yeah.
At any moment.
Right. Yeah.
And so what you're saying too is like someone in therapy could also still be in the determination preparation stage if they're not making active changes in their life to do like that are reducing anything.
Right. Okay. And you could even be in the pre-contemplation stage of change and sitting in the therapy room saying like, no, I'm good. Like I don't have a problem. Maybe you're in therapy for something else or whatever. Sure. Or maybe a family member is like, you need to go, and you still think I don't have a problem. But yeah.
It seems like one of the like catalysts for people, I could be totally wrong. That's just my, is a catalyst is either people in their life are telling them that they have a problem or something legal happens or some circumstance outside of themselves. Because most of the time, at least what I've heard in my limited clinical experience is like, if you ask an addict if they're actually an addict, they often say, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I think that's probably generally true. And there are certainly people who struggle with addiction that are well aware. Yeah, I struggle with addiction and I'm fine with that. Right. So
that's fair. Yeah.
So there's what you're referring to, like, these expressions of concern from family members, and they might even be able to identify like, all these people in my life have expressed concern about my behavior. And still like, I feel pretty content with my decisions.
So, I mean, I have more of like this clinical question because this is a question that I've also like wrestled with clients, with just friends and like families of loved ones who struggle with addiction. And it is this question of at what point does something become an addiction, right? Because I think the big challenge for the person with the addiction, for friends and family, right, like trying not to I guess you could say like enable or to like have a quote unquote like intervention, right? Which I feel like is a older kind of bigger thing that used to happen. It is this question of like, okay, like at what point is it actually a problem? Right. And because to your point, like everyone could be saying, hey, this is a problem, it's impacting all of us. But the person with the addiction allegedly, right, could be coming into a room and be like, I'm actually content. Like I'm okay, whether because it's cultural, just what they've seen, what they've learned, like what's quote unquote normal, how they're feeling. Right. I think to your point, it's like, oh, I'm not getting into legal trouble. I'm not like hurting anybody.
It's managed or
contained. Right. Like I'm in control of it. I can stop whenever. Why is this? Why is it a problem to everybody else except me?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's probably a great scientific answer to it.
Sure.
I don't know what that answer is.
But what is Chase's
Chase Reed's definition of addiction would probably be when consistently engaging with this substance is leading to some sort of problem in your life. That could be legal, that could be relational, that could be like your health. So when there's this consistent, this is clearly having a negative impact on your life, and yet you continue to use it to the same degree or even more over time. I mean, there's even like, this is a scientific kind of piece of it, but you hear about like when your tolerance begins to increase. So it's like, okay, I've been consistently using the same amount of this substance, and now I need to use more to achieve the same effect. So if it's alcohol, like, 4 standard drinks used to like get me to this level of intoxication, and now I need like 7 or 8 to get to that same level. So that's like kind of some of the some of the biological signs of like, oh, this like consistent need for more is showing you that there's like
you built up so
shifts.
much tolerance to it.
And there's a difference between like substance abuse and then substance dependence, correct?
Sure. Yeah. So someone could misuse or abuse a substance on one night, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean they're dependent. So it's likely repetitive substance abuse or substance misuse over time that's going to lead to like an actual dependence on it, where your body literally is like, well, I need that substance because now I've gotten so used to it being in my body that in order to function, I need it.
So a part of what I'm hearing too is like the same pattern over and over and over again, right? Whether it's there's a relational consequence, an individual health consequence, a legal consequence. If a person is, if there's a same A plus B equals C every single time, it's like there's clearly some problem.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned a cultural piece earlier, and I think like cultural pieces, social, that plays a big role of like just socially, what does someone think is normal? Because for one person to come home from work every night and have 3 whiskeys might be really normal based on what they've seen or what what people in their community are doing. And to another, that would be like, oh my gosh,
it's too much.
That's too much. So that's definitely a huge factor as well.
So kind of how people define the problem when it comes to substance use is very different and culturally. Like there's some contextual things that people have to be aware of.
Definitely.
Another question I have is, a lot of times when we talk about addictions, the word codependency comes up a lot. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that, or if you could describe a little bit more of that for our audience.
Sure. Yeah. Codependency is definitely something that often is like holding hands with addiction, if you will. So I would say that addiction itself is incredibly impacted by the system that it lives within. And I feel like we talk about systems a lot on this podcast.
It's Tyler's specialty.
Exactly.
We like systems.
Right. So that means that like addiction isn't just like living in a vacuum. So maybe someone that's struggling with addiction has a family member or a friend or partner that like how they are responding to the addiction or to the addictive behaviors is going to impact how then that person returns back to the substance. So codependency, I think if we were to give like an actual definition, I actually looked this up earlier because I was like, what actually is, I don't know what the real definition of it is.
Sometimes we use these words
we throw it
so
out.
flippantly.
Right. I feel like that
not
is
just us, like pop culture.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I feel like that is kind of a pop culture term now that people are using more frequently. So Merriam-Webster says codependency is the excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner, typically one who requires support on account of an illness or an addiction. So that emotional or psychological reliance on a partner. I would even say that oftentimes the loved ones of those struggling with an addiction notice the codependency so much because, it's like, oh, well, if this person in my life is going to continue to use the substance in excess or misuse it, abuse it, then how do I be okay? So the opposite of codependency is where we begin to where we begin to live into like, this is where I end and you begin. Like we are two separate people, and it doesn't mean becoming like numb or completely unimpacted because we still have empathy. We still are human beings that are relational, but it's like, okay, my psychological, emotional well-being is not dependent or reliant on how you're handling this addiction.
You're going to differentiate yourself.
Differentiation. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Which is harder to do the closer you are to this person.
Yeah,
definitely.
Whether in physical proximity, emotional intimacy, right? Like there's so many factors to that
Absolutely.
that can make that like hard.
And probably harder to do when you have like a deep relationship, like marriage or like children of people who have of parents who have alcoholic tendencies or
for sure.
Yeah.
I actually heard someone literally the other day say, I think all human beings, we all struggle with some sort of codependency, like, because it is hard work to really live out that like differentiated state in relationships, especially like you're saying with the people that we're closest with. That's where we're most vulnerable to that codependency.
I'm trying to see if I have the right words, but it's like sometimes we are impacted by other people's decisions and their choices, but it doesn't have to make or break us.
Exactly.
Right? The differentiation is like to acknowledge, okay, this is really hard, but it doesn't have to impact every aspect of my life where I'm no longer able to function.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's not to say like, oh, I just don't care. I'm not.
Right.
It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Again, it's like that. Okay. At the end of the day, I can be okay, even if
they're not.
They're
okay.
not. Exactly.
How do you see codependency practically play out? Let's say in like a husband and a wife, like just as like a very simple example.
Yeah. I think that's where you begin to see, and you could probably even speak more to this, Tyler, but it's like that's some of those like toxic relational dynamics you get in where it's like, okay, this person does this and naturally this person's then going to do this and then that, and so gosh, can't think of a good example.
It kind of the cycle just
exactly.
escalates in some ways.
Exactly. And what the opposite of that would be someone in the couple being able to kind of almost step out of this like really harmful cycle and break the cycle per se.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would someone, because like when I think about codependency too, I think about like enabling, right? Like as like a dynamic of that in relationship with somebody. How would someone enable someone's addiction, and then how would someone break the cycle to not enable it in, I guess like in a way that's codependent?
Yeah. So I think that enabling can show up in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
Right. So we'll take it like a family system where there is someone struggling with addiction there. Maybe there's someone in the family that their way of kind of like, this is systemic language, but like their way of kind of like maintaining equilibrium or like keeping the peace is like, oh, I'm just going to be the jokester and I'm going to kind of divert attention from the addiction. So that way people aren't worried about the addictive behavior, but like, oh, look at me, I'm over here and I'm being funny.
I see.
Another person's tendency might be like, I am just going to detach completely. So this is like the child that might just end up staying in their room because they're like, I don't even want to be a part of this. I just have to get away. The withdrawer. There might be another child or maybe even like the person's partner that a way they can enable is like, well, I'm so scared something is going to happen to them that I'm just going to remove all of the harmful things. So for example, like I'm going to make sure that they never have their keys.
So they can't go drive.
Exactly. And this is so hard, right? Because this is someone that you care about deeply. Obviously you care about their well-being. And now you're doing all of the things to protect them from themselves. So that person never has to learn to protect themselves from themselves.
So there's a codependency in that of like, I'm going to keep you safe because you cannot keep yourself safe. And, or we're going to like not, and we're not going to talk about the issue, right? Whether that's a kid being a jokester, the other partner like making light of it, someone else just withdrawing. I can see like, one parent just taking the kids and like leaving for the night, right? Like all these things that aren't necessarily contributing to the person's addiction, but is not necessarily addressing the person's addiction.
And I might even say it actually could contribute.
Oh, okay.
So are you the one actually like giving them the substance?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And I do think that like how the system responds can make it less likely that person will change. Exactly.
Oh, I see.
And I think part of what I see a lot is when people are in the role of being the enabler or they're codependent, they were just doing the best that they could. And they're like,
oh my gosh,
I'm just trying to mitigate the small problems.
Keep everybody safe.
And it's just turned into a much bigger problem
100%.
over and over again. And it's almost like, okay, like this is no longer working. I have to find a different way to set boundaries. they look back and they're like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's been years and years of me like almost accidentally enabling this bad behavior by being kind or by turning the blind eye or like even trying to, it's almost like they're tricking themselves to believe like, oh, maybe it's not that bad. Right?
Sure.
It's mostly, and then it's like looking back and they're like, oh, what have I done?
Yeah.
Right? And I have so much compassion for that because people are just trying to do the best that they can. And and then it's not good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would even say like the person that's struggling with addiction is probably doing the best they know how in that moment.
Absolutely.
And that can be a hard pill to swallow, but it's true. And so, yeah, this like sense of equilibrium really might be there because it's just, it's the norm that the family system or systems can exist outside of not just the family, right? Like friend groups or like organizational structures, maybe in a church or something, where it's like, okay, we've all just kind of learned how to feel okay with what's happening here. And actually someone coming in and changing that, like the change maker, we would call them, it's going to rock the boat. Like it's not going to be peaceful for a little bit, right? But yes, you're exactly right. Everyone's patterns that they've kind of shifted into in response to the addiction is just like, oh, I'm just trying to do the best that I can. And I didn't know what else I could do.
This is so random, but the thought that came to mind is like so many times people are trying to keep the peace, right? And they're avoiding the hard thing. And to what we're asking people to do is like, in order to become peacemakers, you actually have to do all the hard work. And disrupt the system and disrupt
the
comfort.
Yeah. And what's hard is like for the peacemaker, there is no promise that it's going to get better. What I would say is like, I think it makes it more likely that that could happen because clearly what we've been doing isn't working. And also back to the differentiation, like no matter what, as the support system for someone struggling with an addiction, you cannot change them. They have to change on their own. What you can do is make sure that what you can do is get your own support and like seek to be healthy on your own, because you're probably going to interact with them in a way that's more conducive to them changing. But again, you can't change them at the end of the day.
So then kind of to, I guess step into that. What does support look like for family members, friends, like loved ones of someone struggling with addiction? Because it sounds to me, and I know this is not like a general umbrella statement, but it sounds to me like we as clinicians are more likely to have those people come into our rooms first. Being a marriage and family therapist, I might get a system, right? Or like Dr. Pay, you see families, so you might get a system that comes in as well. But you touch on it a little bit when it comes to like, right, kind of helping them, encouraging them, empowering them to break the patterns in the system. But maybe like as for our listeners, if they are a family member, friend, loved one of someone, or they know someone, like what does support even look like outside of the therapy room?
Outside of the therapy room?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was going to say like my encouragement for a loved one would be like the best, the most supportive you can be to the person in your life that's struggling with addiction is by getting your own support and getting your own help, right? Because that is going to, in you, begin to break down some of those like codependent tendencies, which again, just like I said, codependency just pops up all around addiction. It's really, it's hard to avoid. So there's no shame in like noticing those patterns in yourself. But that's when you begin to do your own work, is when I believe that you're actually going to be able to show up the best that you can for that person in your life. Yeah.
So do your inner work.
It all comes back to that.
Always.
It all comes back to that. But that's, and frankly, that's not just like doing your own work isn't just for the sake of the person in your life that's struggling with addiction. Like that's for you. That's because living in codependency it's a terrible feeling.
Totally.
Your emotions, your psychological state is like constantly up and down, and it's out of your control because it's so dependent on another person and their actions. So the more you do that inner work, the more you will feel like, okay, my feet are on the ground again. Like I feel okay, even if someone else in my life isn't.
It's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Chase.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to start wrapping us up here, but we have a bonus question for you.
Great.
As we do for everybody else, and for you, I think just given the heavy topic that we've talked about, and just kind of the burden that some of us bear.
Yeah.
What is something that is making you laugh right now?
Good question.
Yeah.
Hard shift, but that's what we need sometimes.
Such a hard shift. I know. Right. As you've talked about, a part of enabling someone with addiction is by using humor and then not addressing. Okay,
no, it's good. It's good.
But anyway.
Something that is making me laugh right now, as we talked about at the beginning, I have an almost 3-month-old, and honestly, just like the noises that he makes, the grunts he makes when he's trying to pass gas, I'm like, you are just unashamed, dude. But no, like, and his eyes are always so wide, just looking around. I'm like, you are really funny. My husband and I are always like, I wish that he had our sense of humor so he could laugh at himself with us. We're just like, if you had any idea how ridiculous you look, how ridiculous you sound, we just find ourselves giggling that all the time. So that's something that's making me laugh right now.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. All right. Well, Chase, thanks for coming. Thanks for showing up and sharing about just your expertise about addictions, for just kind of, the nuggets in your experience and kind of, the science and the research behind all of it. And to all listeners, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you join us again next week.
Thanks, guys.
We can't wait to have you back.
I know. Yeah. So soon.
So soon.
Thanks for listening to the Restoration Psychology Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you're seeking counseling or have any other questions, please contact us at restorationpsychology.com.